have an expired cake for my daughter?" The morning light filtered through the large windows of Henderson's bakery, illuminating rows of fresh bread and pastries. Behind the counter stood Richard Henderson, a distinguished man in his early 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that had witnessed decades of human stories. He wore a crisp white shirt beneath his baker's apron, adjusting the display of morning rolls with practiced precision. The bell above the door chimed softly as two figures entered. A young woman, perhaps 30, with strawberry blonde hair pulled back loosely, stepped inside. Her face showed the weariness of someone carrying heavy burdens. Beside her stood a little girl of about 7, with light brown hair and wide, curious eyes that swept across the bakery with wonder. The woman held her daughter's hand tightly as they approached the counter. Richard noticed immediately how their clothes, though clean, were worn and mended in several places. The little girl's shoes were slightly too small, and the woman's cardigan had seen better days. "Good morning," Richard said warmly, his voice carrying the gentle authority of someone who had spent a lifetime serving his community. The woman hesitated, her fingers nervously smoothing her daughter's hair. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely steady. "I have an unusual question," she began, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Do you have any expired cakes?" "Something from yesterday that you might throw away?" "I can pay something, just not regular price." Richard set down the tray he was holding, giving the woman his full attention. In 40 years of running this bakery, he had learned to read people, to understand the stories behind their requests. "May I ask why you need an expired cake?" he asked gently without judgment. The woman glanced down at her daughter, and her entire expression softened with a love so fierce it was almost painful to witness. "It's her birthday today," she said quietly. "She turned 7. We're going through a difficult time right now, and I just wanted her to have something special, even if it's not perfect." The little girl looked up at her mother, with eyes full of understanding, far beyond her years. "It's okay, Mama," she whispered. "We don't need cake." But the slight quiver in the child's voice betrayed her disappointment. Richard felt his heart constrict. He had 2 grown daughters of his own, had celebrated countless birthdays with elaborate cakes and parties. He thought of his youngest granddaughter, who was about this girl's age, and how she had just had a princess-themed party with more presents than she could count. "What's your name?" Richard asked the little girl directly, crouching down slightly to meet her eyes. "Lily," she answered shyly. "That's a beautiful name," Richard said with genuine warmth. "And yours?" he asked the mother. Claire Morrison." What none of them knew was that someone else had been listening to every word. At a small table near the window sat Margaret Walsh, a woman in her late 50s with auburn hair streaked with gray and intelligent green eyes. She wore an elegant but understated coat and had been reviewing some papers over her morning coffee. Margaret was the founder of a successful marketing firm, a woman who had built her career on understanding people and their needs. She had been about to leave when Claire and Lily entered, but something made her pause. Perhaps it was the tender way the mother held her daughter's hand, or the quiet dignity in Claire's voice despite her obvious embarrassment. Margaret slowly set down her papers, her full attention now on the scene unfolding at the counter. Richard straightened up, his mind already made up. "Wait right here," he said. "I might have something in the back." He disappeared through the doorway behind the counter, leaving Claire and Lily standing in uncertain hope. Claire knelt beside her daughter, smoothing her hair again. "Whatever happens, sweetheart, we'll make today special somehow," she whispered. "I know, Mama," Lily said, hugging her mother. "You always do." Margaret watched this exchange, feeling a tightness in her chest. She had been successful for so long, had climbed corporate ladders and broken glass ceilings, but somewhere along the way, she had stopped noticing moments like these. Her own children were grown. Her husband had passed away 3 years ago, and she had thrown herself into work to avoid the emptiness. But watching this mother and daughter, she felt something awakening inside her. Richard emerged carrying a beautiful cake. It was clearly fresh, decorated with delicate pink and white frosting, with "Happy Birthday" written in careful script across the top. Small sugar flowers adorned the edges. "This one didn't sell yesterday," Richard said, his eyes twinkling with a gentle conspiracy. "The customer who ordered it never picked it up. I really should dispose of it. But if you could take it for $5, that would help me out." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Sir, that cake is fresh. I can see it is. I can't let you do this." Richard came around the counter and placed the cake box on the surface between them. Young lady, I've been running this bakery since before you were born. I think I know what's expired and what isn't. His voice was firm but kind. Now, are you going to help me out by taking this cake? Or am I going to have to throw away a perfectly good dessert? Lily's eyes were enormous, fixed on the cake with wonder and disbelief. Claire pulled out $5 bills from her worn wallet, her hands trembling. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means to us. I think I do, Richard said softly. I came to this country 50 years ago with nothing. People helped me when I needed it most. This is what we do. We help each other. Margaret stood up from her table, her heart pounding. She had made a decision. She approached the counter, her heels clicking softly on the tile floor. All three turned to look at her. Forgive me for intruding, Margaret began, her voice calm but warm. My name is Margaret Walsh. I couldn't help but overhear, and I was deeply moved by what I just witnessed. Claire instinctively pulled Lily closer, uncertain of this well-dressed stranger's intentions. Margaret reached into her purse and pulled out a business card and an envelope. I run a company here in town. We're always looking for good people, reliable people who understand what it means to work hard and care deeply. She handed the card to Claire. If you're looking for work, call my office Monday morning. I'd like to interview you for a position. Claire stared at the card, then at Margaret. But you don't know anything about me. I know the most important things, Margaret said gently. I know you're a mother who asked for expired cake to give your daughter a birthday. I know you tried to refuse kindness because you thought it was too generous. And I know you're raising a daughter who offered to go without, so her mother wouldn't feel bad. That tells me everything about your character. Margaret opened the envelope and pulled out several bills. Please take this. Consider it a birthday gift for Lily. I can't, Claire protested, tears streaming down her face now. This is too much from strangers. Margaret's eyes grew misty. 3 years ago, my husband passed away. We had been married for 32 years. In my grief, I threw myself into work and forgot what really mattered. I forgot about connection, about kindness, about the simple act of helping another human being. She paused, composing herself. You're not accepting charity. You're giving me something far more valuable. You're reminding me why life is worth living. Richard nodded in agreement. She's right, Claire. Sometimes the person receiving help is actually the one giving the greater gift. Claire looked at the cake, at the money, at these two kind souls who had appeared in her life like angels. How did this happen? We just came in for expired cake. There's no such thing as coincidence, Margaret said softly. There are just moments when the universe aligns to remind us of our shared humanity. She knelt down to Lily's level. Happy birthday, sweetheart. I hope today becomes a memory you'll treasure forever. Lily, who had been quiet through all of this, suddenly spoke up. Are you sad because your husband went to heaven? Margaret caught her breath at the child's directness and insight. Yes, I am. My daddy went to heaven too, Lily said simply. That's why Mama has to work so hard now. But she tells me that people who go to heaven become stars, and they watch over us. Margaret felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She hadn't cried in months, had held everything inside with fierce determination. But this child's simple wisdom broke through her carefully constructed walls. That's beautiful, Margaret whispered. Thank you for reminding me. Richard watched this exchange with a full heart. This was why he still came to work every morning, why he baked bread before dawn, why he kept this little bakery running when he could have retired years ago. It was for moments like these, when human beings connected across all their differences and found common ground in kindness. Claire, Richard said, before you go, let me pack up some bread and pastries for you. You can't have birthday cake without a proper meal first. Claire wiped her eyes, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say except thank you. Both of you have given us more than food and money. You've given us hope. That's what matters most, Margaret said. Hope and connection. We all need reminders that we're not alone in this world. As Claire and Lily prepared to leave, laden with cake and bags of fresh bread, Margaret made one more offer. Claire, when you call my office Monday, ask for my direct line. I mean what I said about the job. But I also want to help you find stable housing if you need it. I have connections, resources, and more than that, I'd like to stay in touch. I think you and Lily have something to teach me about what really matters in life. Claire nodded, unable to speak through her emotion. She hugged Margaret, then Richard. Holding on tight to these strangers who had become so much more, Lily tugged on Margaret's coat. Will you come to my next birthday? She asked with the innocent directness of childhood. Margaret smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes for the first time in years. I wouldn't miss it for the world. After they left, Richard and Margaret stood together by the window, watching Claire and Lily walk down the street. The morning sun caught the gold in Lily's hair, and she skipped beside her mother, who walked with lighter steps than when she had entered. That was good work today, Richard said quietly. The best I've done in years, Margaret replied. She thought of her empty house, of the evening spent working late to avoid the silence. But now she felt something different, a warmth spreading through her chest. She had made a connection, had stepped outside herself to help someone else, and in doing so had helped herself. That afternoon, in a small apartment across town, Lily celebrated her 7th birthday. She had pink frosting on her fingers and joy in her eyes. Her mother held her close, whispering about new beginnings and better days ahead. And somewhere in the city, an older woman sat at her desk, not working for once, but thinking about a little girl's wisdom and a reminder that love transcends loss, that kindness heals wounds, and that we are all connected in ways we don't always see. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to ask for help, the generosity to give it, and the wisdom to recognize that in helping others, we help ourselves. These moments of grace when strangers become friends and compassion flows freely are what make us truly human. They remind us that no matter how difficult life becomes, there is always light to be found in the kindness of others. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories celebrating the compassion that connects us all. Leave a comment below telling us about a time when an unexpected kindness changed your perspective. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.